Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you're watching the World Report on News X World. Let's take a look at some of the headlines of this hour. Israel carries out heavy airstrikes on Hezbollah-controlled southern suburbs of Beirut and launches a broad wave of attacks on infrastructure in Tehran. Iran responds by saying it fired missiles towards the heart of Tel Aviv as the conflict between Israel and Iran-backed groups continues to expand across the region. Iran launches fresh missile strikes towards Israel, according to the Israel Defense Forces, as the conflict enters another day of expansion. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Bahrain say their air defense systems intercepted attacks overnight. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says American strikes on Iran are about to surge dramatically, warning that Washington is preparing to intensify its military campaign. He adds that access to the UK's strategic Diego Garcia base in the Indian Ocean could help the United States scale up airstrikes against Iranian targets.
But what's happening with Cuba is amazing, and
President Donald Trump says he's not considering sending U.S. ground troops into Iran, calling such a move a waste of time and saying Tehran has lost everything they can lose. The comments come as the United States and Israel continue air and naval strikes against Iran. The United States and Venezuela agreed to re-establish diplomatic and consular relations in a major shift aimed at promoting stability, economic recovery, and political reconciliation. The move comes after U.S. forces captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in a surprise raid in January, after which he was taken to New York to face drug and weapons charges that he denies. Despite a lack of progress towards a peace agreement and to end their 4-year war, the Russian Foreign Ministry has said Russia and Ukraine have exchanged 300 POWs each today. This announcement follows their exchange of 200 POWs yesterday. Azerbaijan's Foreign Minister Ceyhun Bayramov has said that Azerbaijan is evacuating its diplomats from Iran for their own safety. This comes a day after Baku said 4 Iranian drones had crossed its border and injured 4 people in the Nakhchivan enclave. The U.S. Justice Department releases new FBI records from the Jeffrey Epstein investigation, summarizing interviews with the woman who accuses President Donald Trump of a sexual encounter in the 1980s. When she was a teenager, the White House dismisses the claims as completely baseless, saying there is no credible evidence, while the documents come from 2019 FBI interviews conducted during the wider Epstein sex trafficking probe. Now we start this hour with Iran. Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian has made it clear that the country has no hesitation in defending its dignity and sovereignty. Posting on X, Pezeshkian has stated that Iran is fully committed to lasting peace in the region, but emphasized that mediation efforts should focus on the nations responsible for igniting the conflict, the US and Israel. He firmly believes that those who underestimated Iran should be held accountable. The president's comments highlight Iran's stance of both seeking peace while also standing strong in the face of external pressures. Now we welcome retired Major General Gigi Dwivedi. He's a war veteran and a professor at International Relations and Strategic Studies, joins us live from New Delhi. First, I would like to welcome Professor and Major General Gigi Dwivedi for this. Thank you very much for joining us again. Now, how do you analyze Iran's stance? Although they could be right in their stance, but of course, US and Israel are right in their own stance too. So who would be able to bring these countries realistically to a mediating table? And do you think these countries have lost trust towards US if because the negotiations were ongoing and it has ended in this situation now?
Firstly, Suma, thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for having me on your show.
Thank you.
Well, there are a couple of things that would answer the
Yes.
question by you. Today is the seventh day of war,
Yes.
and Iranians are actually taking a, I think, very severe punishment or hit from the Americans and the Israeli aerial bombardment, and also the naval assets have been attacked, and the whole conflict has actually now become into multiple theaters. Now, when the war is on, it's how it moves onto the negotiation table. There are a couple of conditions. First and foremost, if the both sides are evenly matched, then there's no desire to go in for the peace. But when one side is taking the hit and the other side has the upper hand, then obviously the side which is taking the hit has desire to go on to negotiation table, because after all, Suma, wars start when negotiations fail, and the negotiations start once the aims and objectives have been achieved on the war zone. So when President of Iran, Pezeshkian, has said that they are prepared for the talks and negotiation, but at the same time, they will defend the honor and the sovereignty of the nation. And that's right, because every nation would fight for its own sovereignty and dignity. And this has been stated by the Iranian leadership even before. So the point I'm trying to make is that as yet, I don't think that conditions are ripe for the negotiations to start, because both sides are trying to outdo each other, though Israelis and Americans have the upper hand, but Iranians also responding in their own way, while their response has come down, because there's almost 70% fall in their missile launches and responses. They have lost about 300 launches, and possibly their missile stock is also depleting. So, Azuma, all I can say is that there is, of course, no trust, between Iran and America and the interlocutors also, like Oman. They said that talks were progressing, but suddenly America and Israelis have chosen to go to war. So I think that right at the moment, conditions are not very right. Only after a few days we'll see how the war is going, which side has achieved its aims and objectives, and that will actually set the stage for the negotiation. After all, please remember, the war can't go on indefinitely. At some stage, the belligerents have to come to the negotiation table, but those conditions actually are the ones which are on the ground. And please remember, your position on the negotiation table is your position on the ground. Asuma.
Thank you very much, Major General, for sharing that insight. I'd like to also welcome Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at Hudson Institute, joins us live from Tokyo. Now, Dr. Nagao, thank you for staying with us. Building on Major General's answer, what's your take on this? How long can this drag now? And also, who can mediate between them? And what about the timing? What do you think about the timing? Do you think this is not the right time, that they're both not ready to come to a negotiating table, realistically?
I agree with the general. We need to wait a little bit more because there are two reasons. Firstly, when Iran run out of the missile and the drones, the timing will come for Iran to negotiate. But at the same time, currently, Iran lacks leadership. So that's why there is a President Pezeshkian, but he take responsibility of the one part of the Iranian government. So after the assassination of the Khamenei, who will take care of the top leader, or who take care of the Revolutionary Guard in Iran? In this case, still in Iran, they lack the leadership. So there is a possibility Iran still has some weapon, and Iran lacks the leadership. Because of these two reasons, time hasn't come to talk, I think. But next some days, if Iran continue to use missile and drones, they will run out of missile and drones. Of course, they need to keep some for retaliate against other attack from the other country, not only America, Israel, but also many countries they have already attacked and they will retaliate in the future. So that's why they need to keep some missile and drones, and they will choose someone who take care of the whole country. So that's why Iran needs some days to talk, I guess.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nagao, for sharing that insight with us. And Major General, please do stay with us as we come back to you. Now we have a breaking news coming in from Iran. According to Iranian media reports, explosions rocked the key port city of Bandar Abbas on Iran's Gulf Coast. The blasts occurred amid ongoing US and Israeli strikes on Iran. Local outlets, including Etemad and Sharq, reported hearing several explosions. Bandar Abbas, a crucial commercial hub, is among cities targeted by airstrikes. Details on casualties and the damage are not yet available. Now we move on to Israel. The Israeli Defense Forces claim that it has destroyed an underground bunker in Tehran that was used by slain Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The IDF said around 50 fighter jets dropped 100 bombs on the bunker located beneath Iran's leadership complex. According to the IDF, the bunker was designed as an emergency command center for Khamenei, but after his assassination, it continued to be used by senior Iranian officials. The IDF has described it as a key asset for the Iranian regime's leadership during the war. Iran has yet to comment on this. Now we welcome back retired Major General Gigi Dividi. Thank you very much, Major General, for staying with us. Now, from your analysis, as the war drags on and escalates, do you think that US and Israel are capable of bringing or putting a leadership in Iran who they think is aligns with their policies while protecting their Iran's sovereignty, like they did in Venezuela with Rodriguez?
Well, Suma, that was one of the war aims, beside the destruction of Iranian military potential, nuclear installations. This was one of the war aims to have a regime change and have a regime which is favorable to the Americans. But the point is that Iran's situation is not akin to Venezuela because it's a totally different ball game. First and foremost, in Iran, the current regime is deeply embedded for last 40 years. So therefore, it's not easy to shake up the foundation. Secondly, I think the whole regime change process has to come from the ground, from the groundswell within the Iranians, because it cannot be externally driven. And third point is that as long as the Islamic Revolutionary Guards are loyal to the government, as long as the security forces are still loyal to the new dispensation, and the Iranian people are still have had a fairly bad experience of the January protests. They are not willing to come out and risk their lives. So therefore, I don't think that regime change is possible externally. But yes, within the regime, like President Pezeshkian is known to be moderate, and if the moderate voices actually come up and say that there's no point going for such a destruction, and they sound moderate, then it can be possible that the negotiation can start. But right at the moment, I think the current regime is only extension of the previous regime. They are hardliners. They are not willing to compromise until enough pressure is brought on them through the military means, which the efforts are going on by the American, Israelis, and of course the number of allies that joined in. Great Britain has joined in, France, Australia, Germany. So I think that the regime will have to either change their line and become more moderate, or possibly they'll have to suffer more. And then the people themselves can come up and say that this war must stop, because after all, please remember, Suma, the maximum penalty is paid by the civilians because they are unprotected, they are vulnerable. So therefore, I think that American effort to change the regime externally are not going to fructify. This movement has to come from within, but right at the moment, the current regime is fully embedded, and I don't think there is any chance of regime change in the near future, Suma.
And lastly, who do you, what do you think about, the fact that, right, it's a fact that U.S. has been interfering in foreign elections or foreign head of states for decades. It's not a secret. But how ethical is it that now this is so openly done or being said, and we've seen it with Venezuela, it's still ongoing, and now we are seeing this with Iran?
Well, Suma, the world has moved on from the, international law being the guiding force today. It's the countries which are powerful. Well, they are setting the laws, and therefore ethics issue is on the back burner. And these countries, whether it is Russia or America or even China, they are imposing the will through sheer brute force. And therefore, this is the new world in which force matters. There are no ethics, and the governments or the dispensations are willing to go to any extent to achieve their national goals and objectives. So therefore, that is the pattern of the day. And of course, not only American but the other countries also, like Soviet Union. During the Cold War, they went into Czechoslovakia, they went into Hungary, changed their regimes. So the point is that today's world, I think, talking about idealism, talking about the international law, I think is only a futile exercise, because the countries which have the power will exert power to get to their national aims. And today, 3-4 countries which are very powerful, whether it is America, Russia. Russia went into Ukraine on 24th February 2022, and 4 years the war is on. And same thing, the game is being played by Xi Jinping and the Chinese government. They are almost gobbled up the complete South China Sea, and they are intimidating Taiwan. So in nutshell, Suma, I can say in today, the currency is power. Ethics and value system is on the back burner, Suma.
With that, I'd like to thank Major General Gigi Dwivedi for sharing that insight with us. Thank you. Now we move on to Iraq. The Israeli military has ordered civilians in an industrial area in central Iran to evacuate immediately, citing imminent military actions in the region. The evacuation order came as the military prepares for further strikes. Simultaneously, a drone attack targeted a headquarters of Iraq's Popular Mobilization Forces in Mosul. Though no casualties were reported, this incident adds to the escalating military tensions in the Middle East, particularly between Israel, Iran, and their allies. As military tensions continue to escalate in the region, both Israel and Iran are on high alert, with the possibility of further confrontations looming. The international community is closely monitoring these developments, hoping for a de-escalation in the coming days. Now we welcome back Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's joining us live from Tokyo. Thank you very much, Dr. Nagao, for staying with us. Now, as Iraq and Iran both have been issued warnings and Israel continues, how do you analyze Israel's capacity? Do you think it's unlimited in terms of their defense capacity, their attacking capabilities, and given U.S.'s backing?
Of course, unlimited ammunition, unlimited fuel is not exist, but at the same time, nearly such kind of thing could happen because they prepared well. For a long time, they fought the many wars. In this case, they spent many weapons, generally, we can say. But at the same time, the supply of the weapon and fuel is happening as a supply chain. And so maintaining the firepower it's as a system they have already prepared. And in case of the attack to Iran, there's a possibility it has prepared for a long time, because nearly the decade they planned, and last year the US and Israel attacked a nuclear facility in Iran, but that time they have already identified that attack delayed Iran's nuclear program for 2 years or something like that. So that's why they have already identified in the near future they need to bomb again to destroy the capability and changing their will to develop the nuclear weapon. So since then, they have already prepared this military operation, I think. So that's why nearly 1 year they prepared, and that's why even if they use many ammunition, still they can say the ammunition hasn't run out. And not only ammunition, but also the other factor is related with this, I believe, because they haven't sent ground troops to Iran, and they will not send the ground troops to Iran because the ground troops battle, in this case, it is not easy to withdraw. So that's why they try to avoid it. Missile and drone, they're relatively easy to withdraw, but if they send the ground troops, war will continue for a long time, but that possibilities exist. So that's why to avoid this, they need someone who takes charge as a ground troops. In this case, for example, the local Kurdish military forces.
Yes, Dr. Nagal. I wanted to ask you about that. You already touched upon it, but how do you think how are these proxies being used or eyed in this war?
Yeah, in this war, they need the local, for example, the uprising people or local Kurdish. So the ethnic problem is exists. That's why the Kurdish people is important. And in case of the Kurdish people, not only in northern Iran, but also the northern Iraq or Turkey or the widespread region Kurdish people are living. So that's why from Iraq to Iran, they try to try to send supplies and try to uprise. Something like that is part of plan. So that could happen. But of course, such kind of support could be the double-edged sword. If they succeeded, of course, it will be the effective method to destroy the government. But if they fail, in case one of the scenario is a civil war like Syria could happen. So that's why the civil war creates a sanctuary for the terrorists, so and the terrorists will attack United States finally is not a good strategy for the United States and for Israel also. So that's why this is double-edged sword, but at the same time, as one of the methods supporting the rebellion is one kind of the tactics instead of sending the ground troops. So that's why this is important, I believe, because of the region. This is the area of the Kurdish or area of the local militia, and when they will fight against Iranian government, so of course, this is the route.
Thank you for highlighting that, Dr. Nagal. Please do stay with us as we come back to you for our next news as well. Now, moving the focus on to Asia, China has urged all parties to cease military actions in the Strait of Hormuz, emphasizing its importance as a key corridor for global trade and energy. This statement comes in response to the ongoing US-Israeli conflict with Iran as the war enters its 7th day. China is reportedly in talks with Iran to ensure the safe passage of crude oil and Qatari liquefied natural gas vessels. The conflict has severely disrupted shipping in the vital waterway, cutting off a fifth of global oil and gas supplies. Let's listen in.
霍尔木兹海峡及其附近水域是重要的国际货物和能源贸易通道，维护这一地区的安全稳定符合国际社会的共同利益。 中方敦促各方立即停止军事行动，避免紧张事态进一步升级，防止地区局势动荡，对全球经济发展造成更大的影响。
Now we move on. My colleague and senior editor Uday Pratap Singh has spoken to the Deputy Secretary General of Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, František Růžička, on the ongoing Middle East war, India's economic potential, and the growth of AI at the Raisina Dialogue being held in India's capital, New Delhi. Let's take a look.
Well, joining us now is František Růžička. He's, of course, Deputy Secretary General for Organization for Economic Development and Cooperation. Thank you very much for being with us on NewsX. We are seeing, of course, economic partnerships grow between India and many other countries. Of course, there have been also several free trade agreements that we've seen signed in the last few months. How do you view this potential that many countries are now exploring with India?
I think that there is a huge potential, and of course we see it in the OECD as well. And I have not only participated at this very important and interesting forum, that is organized by, and I congratulate India for, but also in the bilateral discussions with my Indian partners. And we're discussing the different aspects of the cooperation, starting with a cooperation, for example, looking at the investment environment and how to assist from the OECD, to create the environment for investors that is conducive to attract more investments from other countries, but also that is conducive to bring the Indian investments to other countries as well. Then, of course, we are looking at the capacity building and institutional aspects. There are the discussions about the economic survey of India, where we could look at the whole complexity of the Indian economy, and to look at the position of the small medium enterprises, how to help these enterprises, to get better access to the digital technologies, how to get the better access to the investments, because sometimes they don't have the capacities. And then, of course, we look at the labor and skills issues, which of course we discussed just right now at the panel, that there is a lot of the complementarity the Indian system may provide for the aging societies in the industrially developed countries.
Now, you're based, of course, in Paris. We had the French president visit recently, Macron, for the AI Impact Summit. Now, AI, how can that be leveraged for further economic progress as well?
I think that, that is the key game changer in the economic progress. And I think that, there is also, I have to congratulate India for the AI summit, which was the continuation of the summit that was organized by President Macron. And I was listening very carefully to the President Macron's statement, where he said, that the Indian specialists, experts are governing the global world in the artificial intelligence as being the heads of the global companies. So AI is the game changers everywhere. AI has the impact on the education. AI has the impact on the social issues. AI has the impact on the labor market, and AI can increase the competitiveness, productivity. And as we discussed also today, I was very much surprised and happily surprised that in countries like India, AI is implemented much more than in some other developed countries. Thank you very much for the music.
Okay, yes. My final question to you is on the Middle East conflict, because we are seeing it continue, of course. Do you believe that could also now have an economic impact on certain countries, because we're going to see oil prices rise if it continues for a while? The Strait of Hormuz also is closed as we speak. That is obviously affecting energy security, oil supply, and also goods movement and logistics movement.
Yes, you put the question and you answer the questions, because you are fully right in the sense that the conflict does not have only the regional impacts or the impacts on the certain countries. The conflict, whenever it ends, will have the impact on the total global economy. And then, of course, we are not seeing only this conflict, but there are some other conflicts that are still, like the conflict in Ukraine, that altogether will bring the new geography in the economic, in the global value chains, in the energy supplies, in creating the connectivities and cooperation in the economic and trade sphere. And of course, we would like to help end this conflict as soon as they can, because more we go, the more we create the bigger impact on the economies, including the countries like India.
very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
With journalist Dinesh Uday Pratap Singh in Delhi, NewsX.
That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.